combines theory with practical insights, paving the way for you to navigate the financial realm with confidence. Sri Ram originally taught this course in person and now has put together an excellent video course on these important topics.
Hello everyone, my name is Shram Chandi and I'll be taking you through this course on economics and finance and how they're relevant for businesses. Throughout this course, we'll be learning a variety of topics, starting with the key concepts for business, capital markets, valuation of stocks, business strategies and financial statements, how to analyze these financial statements, and things like capital budgeting and cash flow. We'll also discuss things like the business cycle and industry analysis, ESG, macroeconomics, portfolio diversification, and alternative investment types. Throughout this course, you'll learn a variety of different topics in all three of these disciplines and understand the interconnected nature of economics, finance, and business in this world. I also have a YouTube channel called Changemakers Media, which you can see in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it if you guys could subscribe there. I share stories on how teens are making an impact in the world and how you can go ahead and support them. Welcome to the first class on economics and finance. So, a thought experiment to start. Imagine you had a magic box and it outputs $1 a day, or $5, or $20, how much ever you want, and it runs forever. How much would you pay for this box? Some people say $1 million, some people say $1 billion. Well, let's look at it from a statistical standpoint. Instead of a box, let's imagine we have a savings account, and it gives you 1.05% interest annually. How much would you have to put into the savings account to generate $1 a day? Well, using Excel, we can identify that the principal, or the original amount we'd have to invest, is $34,761. This is a large amount, and fairly so. This is due to the small interest rate that we're getting in our savings account. Let's look at another example. Imagine you want to buy a house, and the market price is $100,000. You contribute $20,000 towards this down payment and take out an $80,000 mortgage, which is a loan. How much would you have to pay to get rid of the mortgage? Well, if you have an annual contribution of $9,396, you would assume it would take just about 8 or 9 years to pay off the mortgage. But in reality, it takes 20 years. And this is due to the interest rate of 10% applied on this mortgage. If you look towards the bottom, over the course of our payments, you notice that from 2019 to 2020, our balance, or the principal, only drops by $1,400-ish. This is because the majority of our $9,000 contribution is going towards paying off interest on the mortgage. And we see this effect persisting throughout the course of our payments. However, it does diminish as the size of the principal decreases and our interest payments decrease. So, our key concepts for today's class: return on investment and time value of money, and net present value. So, would you rather make a return of $1,000 or 25% on an investment? You can't really compare apples and oranges. So, what is ROI? ROI is a tool that allows you to compare the efficiency of one investment to another investment, thus allowing you to compare apples and oranges. ROI measures the amount of return an investment generates relative to the amount that you invested. So, this is the formula for return on investment. Current value of an investment minus the cost divided by the cost. So, let's take the example of the house again. Imagine you purchased it for $100,000 upfront, and now the market value of the house is $150,000. Using the ROI formula, we can deduce that you had a 50% return on investment. So, why is ROI important? Because it allows you to compare assets of different classes and express it as a percentage. It also provides a basic measure that's universal to compare an investment's profitability, and it's a basic element in all analysis and decisions for companies and individuals. But it is limited. So let's look at this example. In investment one, you invest $1,000 in some real estate and sell it for $1,200 a year later. So your ROI is 20%. In investment two, You bought $2,000 of stock and sold it for $2,800 3 years later. Using the formula, you have a 40% ROI. So according to ROI, the second investment is better. But when you look at the time considerations, you spent 3 times as much time to make that 40% ROI as you did for the 20% ROI. Hence, ROI is not the say-all, be-all measure of the value of an investment. Okay, now let's look at the time value of money. Continuous compounding. So let's assume you have a savings account and it generates 10% interest per year over 20 years. Initially, you invest $1 into this account. Over the course of 20 years, with that 10% interest rate, the value of your account will rise to $6.07.
Since you guys had
So you can think about what is in some
Soda crackers are also called saltines.
A classical computer performs operations using classical bits, which can be either 0 or 1. Now in contrast, a quantum computer uses quantum bits, or qubits, and they can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. And it is this that gives a quantum computer its superior computing power. There are a number of physical objects that can be used as a qubit: a single photon, a nucleus, or an electron. I met up with researchers who are using the outermost electron in phosphorus as a qubit. But how does that work? Well, all electrons have magnetic fields, so they're basically like tiny bar magnets. And this property is called spin. If you place them in a magnetic field, they will align with that field, just like a compass needle lines up with the magnetic field of the Earth. Now this is the lowest energy state, so you could call it the zero state, or we call it, for the electron, spin down. Now you can put it in a 1 state or spin up, but that takes some energy.
If you took out the glass from your compass, you could turn the needle the other way, but you would have to apply some force to it. You have to push it to flip to the other side. And that is the highest energy state. In principle, if you were so delicate to really put it exactly against the magnetic field, it would stay there.
Now so far this is basically just like a classical bit. It's got 2 states, spin up and spin down, which are like the classical 1 and 0. But the funny thing about quantum objects is that they can be in both states at once. Now when you measure the spin, it will be either up or down. But before you measure it, the electron can exist in what's called a quantum superposition, where these coefficients indicate the relative probability of finding the electron in one state or the other. Now it's hard to imagine how this enables the incredible computing power of quantum computers without considering 2 interacting quantum bits. Hello. Hi. Now there are 4 possible states of these 2 electrons.
You could think that, well, that's just like 2 bits of a classical computer, right? If you have 2 bits, you can write 00, 01, 10, 11, right? There's 4 numbers. But these are still just 2 bits of information, right? All I need to say to determine which one of the 4 numbers you have in your computer code is the value of the first bit and the value of the second bit. Right? Here instead, quantum mechanics allows me to make superposition of each one of these 4 states. So I can write a quantum mechanical state which is perfectly legitimate, that is some coefficient times this, plus some coefficient times that, plus some coefficient times that, plus some coefficient. So to determine the state of this 2-spin system, I need to give you 4 numbers, 4 coefficients. Whereas in the classical example of the 2 bits, I only need to give you 2 bits. So this is how you understand why 2 qubits actually contain 4 bits of information. I need to give you 4 numbers to tell you the state of this system. Whereas here I only need 2. Now if we made 3 spins, we would have 8 different states. I need to give you 8 different numbers to define the state of those 3 spins. Whereas classical is just 3 bits. If you keep going, what you'll find is that the amount of equivalent classical information contained by n qubits is 2 to the power n classical bits. And of course, the power of exponentials tells you that once you have, let's say, 300 of those qubits in what we call the fully entangled state, so you must be able to create these really crazy states where there is a superposition.
This video is sponsored by Delete Me, a service that will remove and stop your personal information and data from being sold online. Use my link in the description and use code WONDER at checkout for 20% off. Ruining your life is easy. It can be accomplished in 15 easy steps. Anybody can do it. And that's perfect, because doing things that anybody can do is part of step 1. 1. Do the easy things. Always do the easy things now and save the hard things for later. Since it's always now, that should make everything easy and nothing hard. Simply put everything off that's arduous, challenging, or intimidating, and you'll never encounter any of those things, because the easy things never lead to harder, more difficult situations. 2. Do what others do. The best way to avoid hard things is to always go the pre-worn paths. Desire paths worn down by the stampedes of others' feet are always there for a good reason, because they are the easiest and shortest paths. And the easiest, shortest paths, especially those in which everyone else goes, are always the best. Refer to step 1. There is rarely anything else in any other direction. There is never any reason to stop and consider other potentially unknown or different paths. Plus, going different unknown ways is scary, and nothing good has ever come from facing the unknown. You could fail, mess up, or need to return to where you started, and that is, of course, the worst possible case. 3. Know that everyone is watching you. Of course, whenever you do anything, people are watching. They're always focused on you, waiting for you to mess up, to say and do the wrong things. Their own problems, their own self-interest, and their own complicated array of experiences perceived from the solitary viewpoint of their head suddenly fall to the wayside when you come around and do anything. They care so much about you, and they notice everything. 4. Know that everyone is remembering you. Whenever you do inevitably say and do the wrong things, it's important to remember that not only will other people notice and care, but they'll also remember and think about it again. Often, most likely. Perhaps it will be at a dinner, a weekend outing, or an early morning at the office. In any or all of these moments, that one thing you did that one time will surely come up and be thought of or talked about. It's important for you to dread and ruminate about this so that you avoid doing or saying anything risky, different, or hard moving forward. 5. Worry often. Think about every little detail of every action and choice you make, as well as every moment that occurs, no matter how big or small. Then, think about them again. More importantly, think especially long and hard about the uncertainty of the outcomes of your actions and choices, and the events that happen regardless of your actions and choices. All the things that you have no control over and cannot change. For the things that you're worried about that you can change, don't do anything. That would require work and likely be very difficult, which is to be avoided. Refer again to step 1. 6. Don't take the risk. Whatever it is you're worried about can be solved quite simply by just not doing it, by avoiding it, by denying it, by running away from it, or by hiding from it. All options work equally well here. Even if you have the means to leave, stay in that job you have for as long as you can. Don't start that new project. Don't say hello to that new person. Don't accept any invites to any new things. The easiest way to never fail, to never mess up, to never exert, and to never be perceived negatively is to never try anything risky, never do anything new, and never be perceived at all. 7. Complain often. If steps 1 through 6 are not working for you, complain. Complain hard and often. You are a victim of misfortune. Assuming you are following the process here, you have done everything right and nothing wrong. Not only are you a victim, but you're a special kind of victim, one that no one else can understand. Sure, other people's lives are probably hard, and they are probably struggling with a similar process, but no one has your brain and your misfortune, and your brain and misfortune are uniquely bad. And, like worrying, complaining doesn't mean you have to do anything or solve anything. It keeps things the same, nice and easy. 8. Always see yourself in a positive light. You can't spell self-care without self. And so, put the self, yourself, above all else. Rationalize your pitfalls as positives. You are a good person, a great person. You would never do anything wrong or bad. Practice affirmations to remind yourself of this, but just stop there. So to avoid any sort of self-reflection or work that might be hard or painful. Guided or internal affirmations work equally fine. Listen to or think things like the following. I am powerful. I am fierce. I am beautiful. I am special. I am great. I make healthy choices. I will do amazing things today. I know my worth. I am proud. For the avoidance of any confusion here, note that you don't have to be or do any of these things. You just have to think them. The more delusional, in fact, the better. 9. Always assume the worst in others. Whenever someone gets in your way, does something wrong, or is inconsiderate to you in any way, know that it's because they are a uniquely dreadful, selfish person, and they are singling you out. It's like a sport for them. They are inherently bad. They have all the right information about the situation and about you, and they have no reason to ever be impatient, foolish, short, slow, inconsiderate, in the way, or defensive. There is nothing going on in their lives that could possibly justify any mistakes or behavioral lapses. People are always considering and treating you as an important distinction from their lives. Refer to step 3. And so, it's best that you expect this, and be short, defensive, and impatient toward them. 10. avoid confrontation. No matter what anyone does, be extremely nice all the time to just about everyone. Of course, don't always mean your niceness. Use the niceness to avoid conflict, confrontation, and difficult things. Refer to step 1. This helps ensure that everyone likes you, and it helps you avoid doing anything wrong or risky. This works great in conjunction with step 9 because now, whenever someone does something wrong to you, like crossing your boundaries, misunderstanding you, and so on, you can blame them and not you, because you're extremely nice. 11. Don't reach out to people. Your isolation is a superpower. Embrace it as a good thing, as part of your identity. You're alone because you're so unique and complicated. Refer to step 7. If you haven't heard from someone in a while, don't reach out. They haven't reached out to you after all. Sure, they haven't heard from you either, but that's different. Ultimately, an endless game of hide and seek with friends and family is a great way to increase the distance and isolation you've already justified to yourself as a positive and now identify with as a part of who you are. 12. Disregard time. Don't acknowledge or respect time. Don't waste energy getting ready early so to ensure you're on time for things that you agreed to be at by a certain time. Be late if you have to. How you handle your time is your own choice, and it doesn't affect anyone else. Better yet, don't even try to schedule things. Be haphazard and careless, and refer to this as going with the flow. Don't make commitments that might be annoying, even if they might be important, and don't follow through well on the commitments you do have. Having little to no responsibilities and obligations, and not caring much about the ones you do have, makes it easy to not do anything wrong or feel negatively about yourself. 13. Don't ever think about death. Death is far too unsettling to think about. Sure, it will happen to you, but it's better to pretend that it won't. Live like you aren't aging, like this isn't the youngest you'll ever be, and like this won't all end forever. Put everything off. Don't undertake meaningful challenges in hopes of overcoming and becoming. Outsource your decisions to the factory of others. Don't take risks that might lead to circumstances of independence and authenticity. Let people slip away and neglect trying to reconnect or make new connections. Waste time by not respecting it. Deny responsibility and resist reality. Have everything right now and complain about it all. You have so much time. You have so much time to do the things you care about, to love the people you care about, and to appreciate what you have. You don't need to do those things right now. Time will stop if you pretend it isn't ticking. 14. Don't try anything different. If steps 1 through 13 still aren't working for you, don't try anything different. Don't try different ways of thinking or different ways of being. Don't experiment, don't explore, don't deviate. Don't dedicate any energy to new habits, hobbies, or people. Stick to the process. Trust the process. 15. Regret. Increasingly look back on your life with regret and realize how much you missed and gave up, how much you ruined unnecessarily. Loathe yourself for being so foolish, and then regret and loathe yourself more for regretting and loathing yourself, which, like complaining and worrying about what you cannot change, solves nothing. Then, close your eyes one final time and do that thing that was never going to happen to you. Great job. You have now successfully completed the 15-step process and ruined your life. Thank you for watching. Of course, there are many ways our lives can be ruined or negatively affected that have little to nothing to do with our actions, by chance circumstances or by other people's malice or negligence. In many of these cases, all we can do is hope for the best. In other cases, however, there are measures we can take to ensure against them. One unique way our lives can be negatively affected today is through the use and sale of our online data and personal information. There are hundreds of data broker websites that make
You've never felt like you could be yourself around me?
Her face was both clenched with irritation and drooping with sorrow. Her brow pulled in while her mouth and cheeks fell out and down as she looked over at me. She looked like she was about to cry, but she hadn't given in yet.
I felt like a version of myself.
I answered.
What does that mean? Aversion.
Her tone was even tenser now.
Just not my whole self, I guess. Not who I really am. Whatever that means at this point.
Then why the hell did you marry me?
She said. I leaned my head to the side and stared at a framed picture of Kate and I. My doctor had said that my chances of making it past 1 year after my diagnosis were very low, given the state of my condition. Now, over a year and a half later, I felt like I was basically living free extra days. In a way, my life felt like it had ended on that 1 year mark. I felt like I was a ghost who only haunted himself. I saw myself as a carcass of life, of regrets, yet still filled with the spirit of who I really was, who I had always wanted to be. I felt separate from everything, yet still present. It was one of those strange states that's impossible to translate to anyone who's never been in it, never outlived their own death. I looked at Kate.
I've never felt like myself with anyone. I don't mean you specifically. You didn't do anything wrong. No one did. It was my fault.
Between the stir craziness of the last nearly 2 years, the medications, having been in the hospice center for the last 3 weeks, and of course, the looming finality of everything, I had, for the first time, and as long as I can remember, perhaps in my entire life, suddenly felt the walls come down. I couldn't hold them anymore. More so, I just didn't care to. It's not that I lost care altogether. I still cared a lot. It's just that I stopped caring about the things that didn't matter, at least not to me, not anymore. I didn't care about being perceived in a certain way. I didn't care about being consistent. I didn't care about how well I played along, what other people expected and wanted of me.
What do you mean, John?
She said, her tone loosening and opening up a bit.
I blew it. I did so much wrong.
Kate leaned in closer toward me. I looked up at the ceiling.
What are you talking about? Everyone loves you, John. Everyone I've ever known that knows you, that spent time with you, loved you, loves you.
I looked back over at her. Her face was softer now, stretching vertically rather than scrunching horizontally. She realized this wasn't about her or us.
My whole life, I was worried about whether or not people liked me, loved me. I did everything I could do to ensure that everyone did, that everyone thought I was the greatest. Oh, John is so great. He's this, he's that. I changed so much about myself to make sure that that happened. In moments, in phases, in years. I went this way instead of that way to ensure that I did what people wanted, that people approved of and liked me. I cared so much about how I was experienced in the minds of others that I never truly experienced me in my own.
There was a long pause.
John, that just makes you a good person. You put others first. It's in your nature. It's a good thing.
Her voice was shaky.
Is it? Did I?
There was another pause. My head was hurting. I felt weak and tired and slightly numb. I felt a strange lucidity amongst the disorientation, though. Kate just sat there waiting.
I cared about how people saw me, how people experienced me. It was always about me, not anybody else.
Well, who the hell else is it going to be about? Of course, everything you do from your perspective is going to involve you.
No, I didn't even care about myself either. That's the worst part. It's like some strange paradox of narcissism and self-abandonment. I was so desperate, so misguided, so self-focused on being liked and seen a certain way that I changed and reduced who I was at every turn. To appease my father, my mother, my friends, teachers, girlfriends, bosses, strangers, my wife. That's not a good person. It's not a bad person. It's just not much of a person at all.
Kate's eyes began to water. Then so did mine.
Honey, you did what you could. You did what you knew how. That's all anyone can do.
I paused for another moment. I looked out the room's window. At the cars and people rushing by on the streets below. A city of people frantically completing to-do lists that weren't their own.
I cared so much about being seen as a perfect person, someone who was successful, who was happy, who was always fun to be around, who was smart and confident, who did the right things at the right time, and now I'm going to die without really having been seen by anyone at all.
I could hear Kate sniffling. She was pulling back tears. They looked heavy.
Okay.
She said defiantly while rubbing her face.
Then talk to me now. Let me see you. Be who you truly are. There's still time. Use it.
Guys, Citlali is the second 5-star that is coming out in 5.2, and today we'll tell you how she works and how good she seems to be at the moment. So, as I just said, Citlali is a 5-star and her element is Cryo. The last Cryo unit we got before her came out a whole year ago, so she comes to aid an element that is in dire need of help. Her role, however, is that of a shielder, a niche that isn't unprecedented for Cryo, as both Layla and Diona have been competent at that for a long while, and in general Citlali will be the 5th defensive unit to join the element. Still, unlike all of these other characters, she has offensive utility that sets her apart. In fact, her shield comes from a Elemento skill that, other than setting your team up defensively, it will also enable a damage over time effect tied to a Night Soul Blessing state. This is already really meaningful for Citlali, because it makes her a defensive character that can efficiently trigger the scroll set from a field and constantly provide the team damage bonus effects. This is great even compared to an amazing character like Shilonen, who is a healer and can use the scroll set, but doesn't have a field damage, so she has more issues setting up the artifact effects for multiple elements of the team, for example. Secondarily, the Night Soul Blessing state comes with another supportive effect through her passive, which makes her reduce resistance to both Pyro and Hydro by 20% when free.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my complete and detailed as a support and healer, then as an on-field damage dealer. While I will touch on this briefly in the video as well, for the most part, what we will be more focused on is her supportive playstyle, where she really shines as one of the best supports in the game. This is because she acts as a healer while also having buffs at a similar level of Kazuha, as she will give you 36% resistance shred to the elements you're running, on top of also a 40% damage buff with the Scroll of the Hero City set, which we'll talk about later, on top of having really good uptime and not a complicated setup. While I don't like direct directly comparing her and Kazuha as much as other people have been doing, because they have different roles. Kazuha has grouping, elemental infusion, and damage, whereas Shilonen is a healer on top of a buffer. It is important to understand that her buffs and resistance shred is on a similar level than some of the premier meta supports, on top of being a healer, which makes her a really strong character in many teams. This is why, to tie it back to her playstyle, the supportive role is so favored and what we're going to be focusing on, because it's really strong and very easy to use. All you need to do is make sure that you're running characters of different elements, either pyro, hydro, electro, or cryo, at least 2 of them, with 2 of the same element being possible here as well. Using your elemental skill, doing 2 normal attacks, and then swapping out, passively decreasing the resistance of those elements in your party, and also acting as a healer through your burst. It's also important to mention that your burst is just a nice form of healing. It's nice to use it as often as possible, but unless you're playing someone like Furina, it's not mandatory in order to maximize your buffs. It's just nice for the healing, obviously. With that said, if you're running the Freedom Sworn weapon, which we'll talk about later, then it's also important to burst every rotation in order to get a second crystallize, one from your skills normals and one from your burst, to trigger its effect reliably. Shilonen's only real weakness is not having much geo application in general, especially from off-field as a support. No geo construct or anything like that, which can affect crystallizing with Navia, but I believe she more than makes up for it in many ways, notably through her very powerful buffs. Now, as far as her DPS playstyle goes, it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure you're getting your Obsidian buff on your burst, using it after your skill, and you'll either just spam normal, just make sure you're getting your Obsidian buff on your burst, using it after your skill, and you'll either just spam normal attacks after using all your support characters' buffs if you're playing her without Shen Yun, and if you're playing her with Shen Yun, then you can spam plunges. Just make sure you're not dash canceling them or dashing needlessly, as it consumes a lot of your Night Soul points. Another tip I want to mention about Shilonen is to make sure you're using your buffs efficiently. Well, the res shred on your skill is very easy to proc. You don't have to think about it, and as long as you do 2 normal attacks inside of your skill, you're gonna get your buff out to whatever elements you choose to run, and you don't have to worry about it at all. What you do need to keep in mind though is for the hero set, you want to be triggering crystallize of whatever elements you're dealing damage with. For most teams, this will be either 1 or 2 elements, and it will be pretty easy to do, but you actually do want to make sure you are triggering a crystallize or 2. And if you're running a team with multiple elements, for example like a Melt Risley team, which we'll talk about later, it can be a bit more annoying to get a crystallize of both of your damage dealing elements, so you may have to pay a bit more attention to your setup, or accept that maybe you can only get 1 crystallize, but you'll still reduce the resistance of both of the elements through Shilonen's skill. A bit more advanced stuff, but basically just make sure you trigger a crystallize to trigger your set's buff, which should happen naturally in most teams, making sure it's of the correct element. Also, for a quick healing showcase of Shilonen so that you can know what to expect, here's my Shilonen on decent investment but nothing too crazy. I'm running a weapon that doesn't give me defense. I'm on the hero set on the standard defense healing bonus build with defense substats where I can find them, and my talent levels are not max, so there's room for improvement there. And as you can see, I am still doing pretty solid single target healing. Now obviously it's just going to be to the active character. It isn't team wide, but it's still more than enough healing to keep your team healthy, and also it can help enable a character like Furina who needs the healing to offset her HP drain. For Furina in particular though, you may have to spend a small amount of time cycling through your characters to make sure they all get healed, but for the most part it's a pretty solid amount of healing to your active character that scales with investment, and that's more than enough to keep you healthy, on top of also having incredible buffs, which is the main reason you're picking her, not just how much she can heal. Keep in mind though that, as I said, her healing scales well with investment, like getting her to level 90 and giving her defense, whereas even just at a baseline, provided you
Is Shalonen's skill really that good? I had the privilege of trying her out early, so let's run some.
A Pokemon evolving is always a milestone. Magikarp's been leeching off the party for long enough, he deserves this. But in plenty of cases, evolution is less like a celebration and more like a head-scratcher. Evolving Tyrogue is pretty standard, but specifically to get Hitmontop, its attack and defense need to be balanced exactly, requiring tons of micromanagement like a mad science experiment. Yeah, that's right, go join the club. Not only is Feebas rare, but evolving it into a Milotic used to be a chore. You need to make it beautiful, but to do that, you need Pokeblocks. So you do a minigame, but you need to use the right berries. Or now you could just use a Prism Scale, I don't know. Evolving Bisharp to King Gambit is weirdly cryptic. It has to hold a leader's crest, which can only be found on wild Bisharp that are surrounded by Poniard, and while holding it, your Bisharp needs to beat 3 more of those same wild Bisharp, although that's still not as bad as whatever this was. Evolving Milcery is kind of funny in a similar way to Inkay. You have to give it a sweet and then spin your character around for at least 5 seconds to get an Alchemy, but depending on how long you spin, what direction, and what time it is, you get a different Alchemy, and it has to be Ruby Swirl with the Berry Sweet. Damn it, and worst of all,
All trade evolutions. Man, Caesar's awesome, but I don't want people to know I'm a Pokemon fan. A Pokemon evolving.
Those are my Cheetos! What are you doing? You can't. Cheetos.
Average cat bath experience.
Free? You have so many comfy beds. Why are you on the trash can? You don't know.
He's not in the mood right now. What an unusual friendship. A little too chunky to fit through that door.
Meow!
He's not a fan of sharing.
Why am I holding the Lightning in first place? In Mario Kart, every track has an optimal strategy. There are two main strategies, but pros will use even more than that. A runner is a track where the best strategy is to run, which means go forward fast with precise driving lines. Yeah, pretty obvious. What else could there be? Well, a bagger is a track where the best strategy is to stay behind and grab items, because you can come back very quickly thanks to the multitude of big shortcuts. You don't use as much driving skill, so you need to make better decisions and outsmart your competitors. A shroomer is a track where you want to start near last place, which guarantees a mushroom at the first item set. Then take a huge early shortcut and run for the rest of the track. A drafter is a track where you want to start in the middle or the back and stay right behind other racers to gain a draft boost and pass them. Each track is different and some are a combination. There are 96 tracks in the game. Good luck! Why am I holding the
If some governments had dropped these black balls from planes instead of bombs, then the entire world would have changed. Actually, in Kenya, every year millions of these kinds of balls are distributed among the public, which children throw with slingshots, tourists drop from airplanes, and the rest of the public spread all over the area, because inside each ball, there is a tree seed which is coated with a protective layer, so that when it is thrown, the protective layer prevents birds from eating the seed inside. And then, when raindrops fall on this seed, the protective layer gradually moves away, and the seed slowly grows into a tree. If some governments had dropped these black balls from planes instead of bombs,
Who gave the best speeches? Prime made me want to roll with the Autobots. They named a whole country after him. Disney. Nobody liked.
Devi fare la cacca di Yuhu! We are going on a road trip! Woo! Yes!
Up here.
Who's...
Did you know that the Chimera cat has two different types?
Fight, fruit, 2, expulsive, protego, fight, ridiculous, protego. Why me? Huh, okay, let's see you try getting rid of a dry spell. Erectus premature ejectus. Oh no, 2 can play that. Unexpecto imprego. No! Fetus deletus. This is hot. With this spell, I will break into your mind. Legitimens! Uno reverso! What were you... Akio Ritual! No! No! You lose. How does it feel to have your stick held in my hands? Give it back! Toodaloo, bitch! Fight, fruit.
Big swords don't work the way you think. In fantasy, big weapons like claymores, greatswords and Zweihanders are perfect for dealing huge blows to a single target. But in real life, that's not exactly what they were for. Now, don't get me wrong, the fantasy version looks incredibly cool, and there's no doubt that they were absolutely formidable. But if you're just looking to deal damage, then an axe or a hammer will probably serve you better. But what these things are great for is controlling space. Because I've got more reach than an axe or a hammer, and more mass and momentum than a spear. So if someone with one of these wants to stop you going somewhere, there's a pretty good chance you're not going there. And the minute you do enter its reach, it can be surprisingly precise. So yeah, for fighting giant monsters, this probably wouldn't be my first choice. But against a horde of undead, I'd take my chances. Big swords don't work the way.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop!
Father like son.
Curiosity got the better of him.
Goose, come here. Good boy. Okay.
Her attacks aren't effective.
No!
Eating an invisible sausage. Instant transformation.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god!
Her cat loves to imitate her. His brain has overloaded.
Oh no! Stop it! Stop it! Stop!
Father like son.
In 2012, a Chicago man bought a car for $600, registered it in his ex-girlfriend's name, then parked it in the O'Hare.
In chess versus checkers, the checkers can jump over multiple pieces in a single turn, just like you'd expect. Double jumps only happen a few times per game, and triple jumps are incredibly rare. But there technically isn't a limit, so that made me wonder, how many pieces could you jump over in a single turn? Well, because of the extra squares that the checkers can use, we're basically working with a 10x10 board. And since a checker can only move 2 squares at a time when jumping, we are limited to just 13 of the 100 possible squares at most. And if we place a piece between each of these moves to represent a jump, we have 16 pieces, so we should be able to jump 16 times. But it isn't that simple. It's impossible to escape these corners during your move, so we can only use them at the very beginning and the very end of our move, so the other two are useless. We can simplify the problem by using this shape, where we are forced to start and end on one of these 4 squares. Each time we visit a square, we have to capture one of the pieces around it, then capture another one as we leave. So the second time we land on one of these outside squares, we'll have no way to leave, and we can only use the center twice. So no matter what we do, we will always lock ourselves out of 2 of the remaining pieces, meaning the most jumps you can perform in a single move is 12.
Where's Chippy? Fifi, where's Chip?
Harper, what are you doing? Oh my goodness.
Bro.
Reggie, don't eat him.
You cannot lay on the baby. Okay. Listen. Kitty, I'm so sorry.
This is the smallest gun in the world, called the Colibri. In fact, it's so small, the developers added a secret animation for it in Battlefield 1. When a character lays prone and reloads the Colibri, there's a chance that he will momentarily lose the gun on the ground and desperately tries to search for it before he finds it again. This is only viewable in third person and only when reloading the Colibri whilst laying prone, so almost nobody would see this naturally. Same goes for this Mark 6 revolver detail. If you look carefully when reloading, you will notice that the ejected spent cartridges correspond to the amount of shots you fired before reloading. If you shoot all 6 rounds, all the casings are empty. If you shoot 3 rounds, only 3 of them are empty, and so on. Pretty cool detail. And the best of them all, in Call of Duty 4 Remastered, you can activate funny cheats in the campaign, such as Melon Head. This will cause all enemies to have watermelons for heads, which is pretty funny, but if you activate this cheat in the mission All Gillied Up, Captain Macmillan will also have a watermelon head, and his name will change to Macmillan. I'm not making this up. This is the smallest gun in the world, called the...
Keria missed the opportunity to fulfill his dream from Worlds 2023, and once again failed to secure a Lux skin at Worlds 2024, despite T1's victory. Last year, he couldn't choose Lux because he hadn't played the champion during the tournament. This year, due to strategic reasons, Keria still couldn't use Lux in competition. Even against the weakest opponent, Pain Gaming, he had to adhere to strict pick and ban strategies. T1 entered Worlds 2024 as the 4th seed, with Pain Gaming as their only easy opponent, while the rest were strong. The match against Pain Gaming became a must-win after their loss to Top Esports. Although Keria could not achieve his wish of obtaining a Lux skin, the most important thing was T1's victory. Therefore, even without a Lux skin, he can still be content. Additionally, Renata, which has been a point of consideration for Keria, might be his choice for a world skin this time. Keria missed the opportunity to fulfill his...
Which one would you rather be true? You're chilling at home with your soulmate, the most beautiful, smart, and simply perfect person for you. You've known each other for over 2 years, but little did you know, your soulmate has been hiding some shocking truth this entire time. Something that might completely change how you see them. Luckily, whatever it is that they're about to reveal to you is not yet decided. So would you rather, 1, your soulmate is from the future, the year 2060 to be specific. Unfortunately, they'll have to go back very soon. So if you want to stay with them, you'll have to leave everything behind and time travel to the year 2060 with them. 2, your soulmate is immortal. They lived for thousands of years in dozens of different countries and time periods. They'll never age, but they'll also outlive both you, your grandchildren, and more. 3, your soulmate is actually an imposter, a robot remotely controlled by an evil prankster. However, now that you know the truth, you can sue the prankster for $1 million. 4, your soulmate is a shapeshifter. They can take any form they want, turn into anyone or anything at will. 5, at night instead of dreaming, your soulmate lives in the video game world where everything feels super real. You can now join them in these adventures. And if you're subscribed, tell me, which one would you rather be true?
This is the hardest pull-up battle of my life. Against 2 pro athletes and Captain America. If you let go of the bar, you're out. But every round you have to do 1 more pull-up. Until you either can't do a pull-up anymore or can't hold the bar anymore. And as you can see, hanging while waiting for the others to do their pull-ups makes it harder with every second. Oh, and in case you don't know these 2 pros next to us, it's 2 times world champion Malin and 2nd place world champion Simon. So yeah, wish us luck. Being already at round 4, not just
More of a hang jump.
but also Malin start to feel it. After Aryan finishes his 5th pull-up and starts hanging like a puppet, Malin can't resist her laugh and pain, and she drops down. But we're clearly all feeling it as our pull-ups are getting slower and slower, except from Captain America.
Aryan is not even touched.
And while I'm doing my 7th pull-up, Simon suddenly drops off the bar. But at least he's having the pump of his life, so with only me and Aryan left, most likely from our 90 Challenge app games that you can download right now from any app store, we continue doing pull-ups until I drop down, while Aryan also finishes his 7th pull-up. Subscribe and help us hit 10 million. This is the hardest pull-up battle of my life. Against 2 pro athletes and Captain America. If you let go of the bar, you're out. But every round you have to do 1 more pull-up.
Me calculating my sleep so I can adjust to how deprived I'll be tomorrow. When at work, your mental health gets to a point where everything is funny. Me and bro